again, I don't follow anything with disturbing images or explicit images, but even if someone's account is perfectly harmless, if their lifestyle or what they have or get to do makes me discontent with my life, I just don't follow it. If I don't have the maturity or just the ability to just appreciate, hey, that's for them, that's what they get to do. If instead it's making me compare myself, it's stealing my joy, I'm just not going to follow that account. Hey everyone, and welcome to Clarity Over Chaos, the podcast brought to you by Women in Apologetics, where we cut through the noise of culture to help teen girls and young women build a confident Christian worldview. In each episode, you'll join myself, Jade, and Cassie as we have honest, engaging conversations about identity, mental health, discipleship, critical thinking, and more, all through the lens of Christian apologetics. If you're navigating big questions and want to grow in truth and grace, you're in the right place.
Clarity Over Chaos is one of the many ways Women in Apologetics strives to educate, equip, and encourage young women like you in Christian apologetics. If you enjoy this podcast, I invite you to follow us. Check out the episode description for more information.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Clarity Over Chaos. Cassie, how's it going? How are you doing?
I am good. I am still in the throes of figuring out my internet since I moved, so I apologize to everyone if my quality is in and out, but we're trying.
Hey, we're working through the chaos. We've all got chaos going on, and it's gonna happen. We're gonna figure it out. It's all good.
It is.
Yeah. Well, we like to start each episode, or at least at some point in our episode, we like to tell stories or talk about if we have any current chaos going on. So Cassie, you go first this week. What has been your chaos of the week or the month or whatever you got?
We'll go with the last week because month is a lot, but my parents actually flew in. It was very sweet to see my kids' last fall ball games. And that was very exciting. But it always comes with a certain degree of chaos because the kids just get wired 24/7 because they're so excited. So, if you think about it, like when you go to somebody's house and the dog is like at the door trying to jump on you, that's my kids for like days. So they, anyway, they were very excited and, we were all stoked to go to these baseball games. And then, of course, being in the PNW, it rains 24/7 sometimes, and it picked this past weekend. And so just dumped all Saturday morning, and my son's baseball game got canceled.
No.
So they didn't get to see him play, but they did go to his practice with us on Thursday, so they got to see that. So they got to see a little bit of him, but he was really disappointed. And that was his last game playing with his bestie too. So it's kind of like this emotional thing for him.
Poor buddy.
Yeah. And then we did get to go watch my daughter's game, but it was still raining and we were all in the big ponchos and it was like crazy windy. So the ponchos and umbrellas are blowing everywhere. And these poor little girls are trying to hold this giant softball in their little bitty hands, and it's all wet. And oh man. So anyway, it was chaotic, but it was fun. It was really fun. And I'm glad they came and grateful that they cared to put all that effort in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How about you though? What's your chaos this week or month?
Let's see. Things have been pretty good over here. Something that I'm involved with in our area is called FCA, which I'm pretty sure that's a national thing, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So that is Christian clubs that meet on high school campuses, middle school campuses, and athletes is in the name, but you totally don't have to be an athlete to participate. It's more for students who want a Christian club, a Christian community, extracurricular type thing to be a part of. And so most of our high schools and middle schools here have an FCA chapter, I guess, or huddle. I forget. I think they're called huddles. Sorry, I should know. Oh, well. But anyway, me and the other ministry staff in our church, we serve at different ones. And we have these events in the fall called Fields of Faith, and they're so much fun. So it's where the students from FCA, it's really student-led. They host like a night of worship on their like football field or soccer field at their schools. And it's just so beautiful because most of these are public schools. And so you have students come and share their testimony and lead worship and talk about either the impact that FCA is having on them, but it's really not so much about what FCA is doing. It's more about how students are showing up to be bold in their faith and what the Lord is teaching them in their lives. And it's always so encouraging, and anyone can come to the fields of faith. So you got parents who come, neighbors, administrators, teachers who may or may not know the Lord. And we just had these past couple of weeks at 2 different really big high schools in the area. And this has really nothing to do with chaos. It's more of a clarity over chaos moment is coming to your public schools, which are often very chaotic, especially, these days, and just having these nights to pray and worship. And there's a gospel presentation, and we youth ministers and church leaders stand at the sides to receive people to pray, or if they want to put their faith in Jesus. And that has happened at both occasions. And it's so wonderful. So if you're listening and you're involved in FCA, I'm so proud of you. And I love that. If not, check out if your school has an FCA or a Christian club to get a part of. That's so helpful and healthy to find other students at your school who want to be a part of a Christian club and community. And it's usually either before school or after or during lunch, and someone gives a devotion. You might have some pizza or some snacks, just depending on how your huddle is run. And so, it's just been such an encouraging week, and it's encouraging for the students too. So it's just been really nice, like clarity over chaos moments in real life. So.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. I'd love to go to one of those.
It's so beautiful, especially seeing like Christian teachers get involved, and that gives them a way to minister in their schools, in a secular setting. It's really, really cool. So
yeah. And then the kids know who to go to,
Yes.
Oh,
very, very true. Today, guys, we are talking about a pretty important topic, or a little subset of topics. We want to talk today about pop culture discernment. So thinking through what we listen to, what we read, the social media we consume, the things that we watch, because our world is full of screens and voices and platforms. And so we're all listening and reading and watching things. So how do we think through how to sort through all of those things? So Cassie, I want to kick the ball to you first. Just get us going talking about how you, especially for you or for your family, how do you think through these kind of things? Let's start with like watching, what we watch, social media, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So obviously having kids, a big thing that we put some pretty hard barriers in place, but I think a lot of the barriers that we put in place for our kids, honestly, if we think about it, should be barriers we have anyway. So we definitely restrict like things like rated R, things like that. But more importantly, we try to think through what is the messaging of what we're watching, and what kind of images are we putting in our brains? Because a lot of what we watch is going to be hard to forget sometimes. And so we look first at what is the message of this. My husband and I usually try to look at, especially if the kids are going to watch with us, what's the message of it? And is it teaching truth, or are there going to be times where we're going to have to pause? Because we do that. We'll pause and say, hey guys, what did you think about that? Do you think that's true? So my kids can ask additional questions, and we can really think through what's being said or portrayed. And then as far as the images, what I'm kind of talking about with that is not necessarily just what you'd obviously go to with like the real bad horror slasher movies. We don't need to see that kind of stuff, right? Or the demonic influences in some movies. But even for me in particular, an example I can think of is I can't watch a lot of war movies. They're just extremely hard for me to take because I am a veteran. I come from a family of veterans. I know a huge community of veterans. I've lost friends in war. It's really hard for me to take that. And so those images and a lot of what's being portrayed tends to affect me a lot stronger, I think. And so I know that for me, that's not something I need to watch or should watch. Because it will affect me pretty powerfully emotionally, and not in the best ways. So that's just one example. Horror movies are another one. I don't watch horror movies. I don't watch those kind of things because I don't need those images in my brain. And that's what we're trying to teach our kids too, is when you go to bed at night, you don't need these images of those awful things flashing through your mind. It's not helpful. And so especially with kids' creative brains, all the big imaginations they have, and they don't necessarily know as much as we do to discern that couldn't be real anyway. So being really careful about the images, even that we're putting in our brain, because they will stick there, especially if they have an emotional response it will bury itself in our brains and it'll come back when we really don't want it to.
Yeah,
That's a big part of it for
absolutely.
me. How about you, Jade?
Yeah. I like what you brought up about how some things will affect certain people depending on your life experience. So that's
Mhm.
kind of up for you to decide, okay, based on how I respond to things, what affects me, what, triggers me, if you will, what really makes me anxious might be different from person to person. So just being wise about how does this affect me? Is this a good and helpful thing for me to watch? How do I feel after it's over? Do I feel more anxious? Do I feel more stressed about the world and the chaos we live in? Or do I feel hopeful? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel ready to, I don't know, fight for truth, or just I feel more lighthearted and joyful or cheerful? Those are good things to feel, and what you should watch should benefit you in a good way, And this is like something so opposite of war things, but something that I just choose really not to watch a lot. Y'all are gonna laugh at me. Is like HGTV, like home improvement stuff.
Mhm.
I'm not like triggered by like ripping out drywall. It's nothing like that. It's just that I used to watch a lot of those kind of things, or like beachfront bargain hunt, where people were buying like their second home on the beach or renovating their house. And I realized it just made me so jealous. I just would get so
Mm.
jealous of like, that's not my house. I don't have a second home, boohoo. But for real, like it would make me discontent with how the Lord has provided above and beyond for me, that I have a home where I live that's beautiful and more than I need. And but just watching those images over and over of people having nicer, better, more money than me was just, it made me feel sad. It made me, covet, which isn't a word we use a lot, but that's a 10 commandment. We shouldn't covet and want and be jealous and feel that sick, nasty, icky kind of feeling. So I really don't watch a whole lot of HGTV things or home improvement things. That is not a sinful thing. I'm not condemning you if you watch it. That's a me problem. That's just a me guarding my heart from discontentment and jealousy. And that's also just a kind of a rule I have for myself on social media is, again, I don't follow anything with disturbing images or explicit images, but even if someone's account is perfectly harmless, if their lifestyle or what they have or get to do makes me discontent with my life, I just don't follow it. If I don't have the maturity or just the ability to just appreciate, hey, that's for them, that's what they get to do. If instead it's making me compare myself, it's stealing my joy, I'm just not going to follow that account. And so I really encourage you guys, just think about how you feel after you consume social media or what you watch. Do you feel better or do you feel worse? Less content,
Mhm.
less peace, less joy, and more anxious, or whatever that might be.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to social media too, because I think that's such a huge part of social media. You think of the influencers, right? It's a whole career now.
Yeah.
People have built their lives around being influencers, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
And how are they influencing us? It's not. It is often rather not in ways that push you toward God.
Yeah.
It's often in ways that make you think, "Oh, I do need to replace all the tile in my bathroom right now." And
Yes.
or it and it's or I need to change my outfit 3 times a day because I've got 3
Yeah.
different levels of events going, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the get ready with me things where they're like doing their
Yeah.
makeup and all that. It's just a weird way of, and I think it also leads to this odd sense of community and intimacy that's not real.
Mm.
And that can lead to a lot of bad things too, because then are we more worried about making sure that we jump on and catch our favorite influencer for their live stream, or are
Mhm.
we connecting with the people around us that are actually part of our community? And what are we prioritizing? And I think something I try to think through when I talk about this with our youth group is, are you using social media, or are you letting it use you?
Mm.
Because a huge part of social media behind the scenes is the algorithms, right? We all know that big word, it gets thrown out at us all the time. But what does that mean? Well, it means that it's literally a big computer code, if you want to call it that, that's figuring out, okay, what does she watch? What does she
Mhm.
shop for? What does she click on? Who does she visit the most? How can I put all of these things in front of her and keep drawing her back over and over again and get her addicted and coming back for more and more and more and more? And that algorithm gets more and more and more specific and tailored to what you're doing. An example I can think of is, we have an author friend. Lindsay Menwalt, who every time she does a project, her algorithms get so messed up because she writes on things like a Christian perspective on aliens. And so then her algorithm is all alien stuff.
Yes.
And conspiracy theories. And it's hilarious. I hope, shout out to Lindsay on that.
Yes.
Sorry to use you as an example, but I know she won't mind. But it's one of those things where your algorithm will change, and it's designed to draw you in. And so it's using you in that sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not condemning social media as being all evil or bad. I mean, our podcast has an Instagram platform, and this is being shared on YouTube, which is kind of a form of social media. It has a comment section, things like that. And so we're not saying it's all bad. Of course, there's some really amazing Christian content on social media, and it's cool that you can learn a lot from social media. I mean, even simple things like it's amazing that someone will like film themselves fixing their broken dryer, and that my husband can watch that and go like replace the belt in our dryer. He literally did that the other day. I was like, man, if we didn't have internet, we would be out of a lot of money and time, you know? So of course there's good things online and things that are funny. I love to laugh. I love to watch funny videos. But a really important thing to remember is, in addition to what Cassie said, you have a digital footprint, and there is software where colleges and people on the committees for scholarships and jobs, employers can look at your digital footprint. I mean, how many times have we heard, y'all, tweets or Instagram posts or Facebook posts from years and years ago coming back to haunt someone? They lose their job, you know, something that, oh, I was just a teenager, I didn't know better. That does not hold up. It does not hold up if you post something that is inappropriate or whatever it might be that does not make you look good or that is not good. You have a digital footprint. So please, not just for outward appearances. I'm not trying to tell you, look perfect on the outside and do what you want on the inside. No, I'm not trying to be a Pharisee here, but it does matter. Like how you act matters, what you say matters, especially as a Christian. And so is how you're acting and behaving and speaking on social media reflective that you are a follower of Jesus? I just get so disappointed sometimes. Again, I'm scrolling just like y'all do. And you can see if any of your friends has like hearted or liked, a video. And sometimes it's like a filthy video or like filthy language or music, and it'll be hearted by somebody I know. And I'm like, man, your little heart is affirming this, whether you realize it or not. And I would not want my name to pop up, at the bottom of someone's video as something I liked or commented on or shared or reposted when it's something that is not glorifying the Lord. If it's an explicit song or language being used or a lifestyle promoted that is against scripture. So be thoughtful about what you post. The music that you put behind your videos, is that glorifying God? I mean, I know it's a lot to think through, and it's a lot out there, but these things are important. It's about our witnesses. We want to shine like lights in the darkness, not be a part of the darkness or contribute to that or identify with the world. We're supposed to be set apart and called higher than that. There have been many people, many of my students I've texted like, hey, I don't know if you've thought through this, but this is how this comes off in this post. This is how, and no one's ever been like, oh, Jade, you're so stupid and out of touch. No, they're like, hey, you're probably right. Sorry. Thank you. And it's not, I'm not trying to, run the world or have people try to please me. It's just, hey, my brain is fully developed and I realize yours is not in a lot of cases. And this is just something I want you to be mindful of. And just, most students or young people take that really well. But I like what you said. Is it using you, or are you using social media in a healthy way, in an appropriate way? And I do want to say, like, I think we're all guilty of this. We tend to live our lives, or if we're at a cool event or on vacation, we live with the filter of getting the good picture for Instagram or cool video for TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it might be. And man, that really sucks the experience out of, the good out of the experience, if you will. Like living to just post that thing later, that's just a sad way to live, right? Enjoy yourself, enjoy the fun memories you get to make, and be there, be present. Don't just be focused on getting the right picture. Who cares if no one sees it? I think we idolize the post. We live for the post, or we're thinking through our experiences in terms of, did I get the right picture to document this later? Don't let that steal your joy or steal your presentness in those moments. Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And the other piece to that's new for the generations coming up that we didn't really have, because I'm old. I got on Facebook in 2005 when it came out. And you still had to have like the college email and all of that, like,
Yep.
So, but I didn't have the added problem that some people are going to have now coming into it of AI, where even if you post something and then you think, oh, maybe not, and you take it down, it could already have been swept up into AI.
Yeah.
There's a permanent footprint there now that wasn't there before. And also the idea of what is real and what's not. AI is being used to generate so many things, even videos of celebrities endorsing things they would never endorse, things like that, where beyond just funny memes.
Yeah.
It's gone well past that.
Yeah.
So being careful, just again, what you're consuming, what you're clicking on. Is it real? Is it true? It's really helpful. Sometimes more than once, I've had to Google something afterwards and been like, is this real? Did he really say that? And more than once, it's been no. So just be aware of the impact of AI on that too.
Okay, well, let's bounce over to reading. Both of us love to read, and we've read a lot. We read a lot, and I hope I hope our listeners are readers too. Readers are leaders, ladies. Don't forget that. So, or leader. Right. No, wait, leaders are readers. I said that wrong. That's embarrassing. Leaders are readers. Readers are leaders. Leaders are readers. I guess it could go both ways. You get what I'm saying. So, Cassie, how do you think through what you choose to read?
So first off, anything that I read that has any kind of explicit content, I put it down. I'm not going to pick it up again, because it's kind of the same as movies. Because I'm obviously talking specifically about fiction, but if you're reading something and there's an explicit scene in it, I put it down because my brain is going to come up with its own images at that point. Yeah. And I don't need to be going through that stuff or thinking about that stuff. It's just not right. The Bible tells us to think on what's pure, right, and holy, and that is not it. So immediately I put that away, and I'm not going to read it again. I either sometimes I actually will throw. That's the rare times where I will throw a book away, or I will delete it off my Kindle or whatever it takes. I get rid of that because I don't need to have that in my mind. And then again, I really do limit books that have like foul language as much as possible too, because generally books that have a lot of that are obviously not focused on good themes that are going to push me toward what's good and true and beautiful toward God. And so I also try to really limit any bad language, which I realize kind of limits me on some of the fiction side of things. But I think that's important because some of those messages are getting through whether we realize it or not. And we're starting to absorb things like that. And I notice sometimes if I've watched a movie that had bad language or something, which I try, again, I haven't done for a long time because I realized that I absorb that and I'm more tempted to use that language when I get frustrated or something. And I don't want to do that. I want to reflect Christ. And so just being really cognizant of the language. And also it is important to it maybe sounds a little intense, but to know who the author is and kind of where they're coming from. Because I'm not saying every author has to be a Christian. I'm not actually even saying that because I love to read Mark Twain or older novels like that, or even more modern novels. But knowing their perspective, are they atheist? Are they coming from some kind of LGBTQ agenda? Because that probably will come into their book in some way. It's a part of their life and it's important to them. And so whether or not that's the point of the book, it'll probably still sneak in. Yeah. So it is worth knowing a little bit about the author, their context, and then you can know what to expect so that even if you don't have to put it down for the reasons I already mentioned, you do want to keep in mind the messages you might be getting through what they're portraying in the book, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And y'all, I sympathize with the struggle of finding good, clean, modern books, fiction, novels. Like I love to read nonfiction. I love theology and apologetics books. And I love a good, beautifully well-written, thoughtful story. That doesn't have to be necessarily, G-rated, because so much of human history, especially reading historical fiction, covers things that are pretty brutal. Like we're dealing with sin, we're dealing with the reality of living in a broken world. But like you said, finding something that isn't full of filthy language or explicit content is so hard. And especially these days, most popular books have an LGBTQ character or theme, something like that. So a lot of times you can just Google themes in this book that you're thinking about reading, or I mean, I'm sure this would also work with movies. And it'll tell you the major themes of the book. So a lot of times that will pull up if there's LGBTQ representation. Or one I was looking at recently, I was looking at this kind of mysterious fantasy book, and it talked about like the theme came up as the power of the zodiac, like I say that wrong every time, astrological signs, horoscopes, that kind of thing. I'm like, as a Christian, I don't need to be messing with that. So I just passed on that book. But I get it. It's a bummer and it's hard. And I'm a part of a book club at church called the Chapter Chicks, and it's a lot of fun. And so it's just it's not through our church. It's just, we're friends from church. And so we read, I just hit my microphone. We read a book, and there have been times when we have vetted these books. We have read the summaries, we have read the reviews, and we're like, this one seems good. And stuff still got through. We would read it and realize, oh my gosh, this has, a lesbian plot line, or this has filthy language that we did not expect to find in here. So I get it. It is hard to find good books, but it's, it could be very helpful if you just ask someone who's read it, or just Google, see what the themes are in that book. And that can kind of help you hopefully sort some of those things out. But I also want to talk about, the rise of popularity of explicit literature, explicit content in books, especially marketed to girls. Oh my goodness, this has taken off so much in the last few years, has really skyrocketed. And so this is books, novels. I find it's especially common in like fantasy novels or romantic novels with sexual content in there, with pornographic language, essentially, and scenes depicted in these books. And I think this has such a draw towards girls is because books really get into our imaginations and into our emotions, and we really pair those strongly as women. And so when we get to scenes that have pornographic material, it's enticing to us because our emotions are already wrapped up in this, and it's really hard to put that book down. And I think it affects us more than just a big, visual pop-up of something explicit where we might be like, where guys might be more stimulated by visual images. I think this really appeals to our imagination and our emotions. And it's just kind of has a softer edge to it, if you will, because it's written and not just this big explicit image that we're seeing all of a sudden. These things, I know they're often described as smut or spicy books, spicy reading, whatever. These things are even more dangerous because it's a little sneakier. It's a little easier to hide these things in public or in private. And it's a little more nefarious because it just sneaks up on you in a book. You just don't expect to be like spiritually attacked so much in a book. Maybe it's a little more obvious or expected when it's a visual medium or something like that. But I just caution you, be careful about what you read. Do a quick Google search to see what it might contain. Is this novel spicy? Is this novel sexually explicit? And I know it's hard. And it's, just kind of an exhausting search to find something that is appropriate. But I promise there are really great books out there that are clean and are appropriate, and it's worth spending your time and your money on those things and not things that are hurtful or that go against Philippians 4:8, which tells us, like Cassie already mentioned, to think about things that are lovely and beautiful and excellent and praiseworthy, things like that.
And there are,
I want to bring up, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say there are apps that actually will help you with that. And they're not even explicitly Christian apps, but Storygraph is one that comes to mind. It will list, when people go in and read the book and review it, they will list the themes. And so you can easily go in and see what the themes are in that book. And because it's not Christian, they're happy to list everything and tell you exactly what's in there. And then Goodreads will do that. I mean, there are a lot of things that will actually tell you what themes are in there too. So you don't have to feel like you're in panic mode every time trying to figure this out. I would start with some of those sources where people are reviewing the books and look at the reviews. Like, people will put in the comments in their own reviews, like, this is what I didn't like about it. And I've actually decided to read books for that reason too. This book was too Christian. Yeah, it was good to me. And so anyway, it's worth reading the reviews sometimes too. If you really are still on the fence about whether or not it might be good, look at the reviews and see what they say.
Totally. And to bring kind of an apologetics moment into this discussion, I think it's definitely relevant. The Bible is not a G-rated book. I mean, you go Old Testament, you'll read some stuff that you're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? What are these people doing? There are explicit things described in the Bible, but what I want to point out is that these things are not being glorified. These things are not being condoned. These things are often shown because the Bible is a work of history, so much of it is historical. So it's saying, hey, this happened. Just like when you read a history book, there's some horrible things in there. Because this is what happened. This is what people did, and we're accounting the history of these things. I mean, you read the book of Judges, some of the judges or the kings of Israel and Judah. Oh my goodness, the stuff they got up to, insane. And so, but again, what is the Bible prescribing versus what is it describing? So the Bible often describes, hey, look what King David did that was great and good, and how he honored the Lord and trusted him. But also look at the destruction he brought on his family with these different relationships and sin and all kinds of things. It's very clear the Bible is not condoning that behavior, because it shows death and destruction and broken families and abuse and all kinds of stuff. So no, the Bible is not G-rated because it's talking about real human history, real human sin, and what has gone on. And ultimately, this is why we need a savior. This is why we need Jesus, our perfect, sinless savior, to save us from ourselves, because we are a mess. You know?
Yeah. And that's so important to be open about, because that's one of the first things that people will point at sometimes when they're saying, well, look at your Bible, though. Look at what's in it. Look at, why would your God do that? Why would he allow that? And it's important to know that difference. Like you said, he's not condoning it. It happened, and we have to be honest about that.
If you've been impacted by Clarity Over Chaos or any of the resources that Women in Apologetics provides, would you consider partnering with us through a monthly gift? Your support helps us continue this vital work and reach even more individuals with the tools they need to stand firm in their faith. Personally, I am so proud to be a part of WIA, because each woman on our team faithfully uses her gifts and abilities as we produce resources to equip our sisters in Christ to defend their faith. You can help support this mission of ours by getting started with a monthly gift at womeninapologetics.com/donate. Okay, so the last sort of topic we wanted to touch on today are the things that we listen to, particularly in the realm of music. But I guess we could also talk about podcasts or audiobooks, things like that. So what do we listen to? How do we select or be choosy about what we listen to? Cassie, what do you think?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing. I obviously stay away from explicit language because most of the time I have little ears listening to, but also I don't need to hear it. And I remember very clearly when I was in middle school, my dad, I was actually singing along with a Christian CD, was Jackie Velasquez. So, you know, shout out to 90s kids and their Christian music. Yes. But yeah, and my dad he really liked the song, but he noted that I was just kind of singing along and didn't really know what I was saying. And so he stopped it and said, "Are you listening to what you're singing? Do you listen to the lyrics? Are you paying attention?" And his point in that moment was that it was a really good worship song and listen to what it's saying because it's scripturally based. But the opposite can also be true if you're not paying attention. And we tried to drive that home. For instance, when you go to sports games and like at baseball, they'll have a walk-up song when they're going up to bat. And that's super cool to do. But what are we playing in that moment? Because now it represents us. And so are we using a song that has explicit lyrics or a message that we don't like? And it's not even just that. Like you mentioned before on social media, people will put clips of themselves working out at the gym or putting their makeup on in the morning or whatever. What songs are you putting in the background? Are these God-honoring songs? And if you're having a hard time finding a God-honoring song to go with the video, maybe the video doesn't need to go up. So yeah, I really try to listen to lyrics though and pay attention to that. And it is worth, again, knowing a little bit about the artist. Who is it that's singing? What are their beliefs? What is their context? Because you're going to get some people even that might seem solid, but then you go back and you look and you think, oh gosh, no, they're kind of into new age stuff. Maybe some of this I shouldn't be singing. Even some Christian artists that might be played on some Christian radio stations might have some messages that aren't quite biblical. So just being really aware of who the artist is and what are they saying? What are their words? Listen to those lyrics because they soak through what we call the brain barrier. Like music gets through like nothing else can because of the rhythm and the beat, and your brain latches onto that. There's a science behind it, and there's a reason some of the tunes from commercials and stuff are so catchy. We know this is how our brains work. So what you're listening to musically will get through. Is it a message you need to be absorbing?
Yes. Yeah. And music is good. Like music is a gift of God. It's inherently good. We see music that will be in heaven. We will be singing and praising and worshiping the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so music is good and it is powerful. You're absolutely right. And I mean, how many times, just being honest here, like you hear a song that's so catchy or it's fun to dance to, and maybe it does have a little language or whatever, and we're like, oh, it's not that big a deal or whatever. But then what happens? It gets stuck in your head and you find yourself fighting to not say those words or those things, or and it's just replaying in your head over and over. And you're like, you think you're like better than that or above that, but no, music is so catchy and it does stick with you for a reason. And Psalm 19 tells us that we want the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart and our mind to be pleasing to the Lord. And if I'm cycling curse words or sexual content lyrics in my head, like that's not pleasing to the Lord. And again, I know it's hard. It's such a massive bummer that some of the best beats and melodies are paired with lyrics that don't honor the Lord. That's a huge, huge bummer. But thankfully, there's a lot of really good music out there, both Christian and not Christian, that's still clean and good and just appropriate. And so there's a lot to choose from there. But yeah, be mindful about what you're listening to. So right now it's October when we're recording this, and just a few weeks ago, I'm sure everyone knows that Taylor Swift released her 12th latest album. And this may or may not surprise you guys, but I love a lot of Taylor Swift's music. And so, I mean, I go back with her to her debut album days, where she's a couple years older than me, but I was listening to Tim McGraw and Teardrops on My Guitar on my pink iPad Nano, going to school. Like, I loved her music, and I still think she produces a lot of really great music, thoughtful songs, good lyrics. I'm thinking of like Blank Space and Love Story and My Tears Ricochet, like even songs that aren't happy, that are just thoughtful and interesting and good. But sadly, just the past couple of years, she's producing more explicit content or content with more language. And no one is more bummed out than me about that, because I love a lot of her music that has been good and clean and in the past. And unfortunately, a lot of that, especially the new album, has some songs that are quite explicit in terms of content and language. And man, I was so bummed. I was like, man, can't we just get some good like 1989 back with like Style and Blank Space that were just fun and still really well written, but didn't have that kind of content. And so just be mindful what you're listening to. Are these things getting stuck in your head? Is it making you wish for a lifestyle or a point of view or a perspective that, or a relationship even, that does not glorify the Lord? And so that kind of came to mind as we were talking about this, as what's kind of in the news right now in terms of pop culture and things like that. Obviously, we're all talking about Taylor Swift and Travis, and I thought that was worth bringing up. But something else we can talk about is even like podcasts and things that we listen to. Do you kind of have the same? I don't know if you're a big podcast girl. It's ironic we're talking about podcasts while we're recording a podcast. But are you a consumer of podcasts, Cassie?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I have. So I have my daily ones, and we can go into that in a minute because I wanted to mention the news as well. But yeah, I have my daily ones where I get a lot of news from. But I also have some. I went through a period right after I stopped working and had a newborn baby, and was kind of alone a lot because my husband was deployed, that kind of thing. I really got into the true crime podcast stuff and like went down that rabbit hole. And one of my favorites was these two ladies that talked about, that was all they did, was talking about murder and stuff. Yeah. And it was fascinating to me because criminal psychology and all that kind of stuff is fascinating to me. But after a while, I realized like that was what I was really just burying myself in, was all this darkness of all the worst of humanity, all the terrible things happening that people are doing to each other in all these true crime podcasts. And so I had to take a step back from that for a while and kind of recalibrate my brain to, let's think about some more positive things than Dateline constantly, and what can we put in our brains that's going to be uplifting. And so I started finding other podcasts that were really helpful in that area. And, Stand to Reason's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
They have a long time one because Greg Kokel's had that radio show. And there are a lot of ones like that. And there are even some that where, like my church right now puts their sermons in podcast form. And so you can find things like that, and I get you may not want to listen to sermons all the time. Totally get that.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of ones like ours where it's people talking about how to think biblically. And I love Filter It Through a Brain Cell, where she talks about actual apologetics arguments and walks you through those. There are some really good podcasts out there that make you think. That's the other thing, because I think sometimes people will listen to podcasts as kind of a mindless background noise, but some of that stuff is still going to be getting through too. So just thinking through, what are you listening to? If it's just going to be background noise, it could still be something good that would be helpful. We even have a history podcast we do that my kids absolutely love. That's a Christian one, a Christian worldview podcast for history, and they love it. They live for the next episode. And so, thinking through that is really important too.
Yeah.
What
absolutely.
about you?
That's so fascinating. You brought up the true crime thing, because I had such a similar experience. I don't think we've talked about this before. Just a few years ago, I was consuming so much true crime content, because same thing, I think forensics is fascinating. The criminal justice system, criminal psychology, I eat it up. But I had the same conviction, Cassie. I'm like, how many, probably thousands of hours did I spend over the years listening to darkness, to evil, to murder? And the sad thing is mostly women victims. Like, let's just be honest, like mostly women are the victims of that. People who could be myself, my sister, my sisters, theoretically my mom, whoever. And just sometimes those podcasts are done well in a honoring way, I guess, but sometimes it's a little, it's glorifying that evil and that murder sometimes, or even making light of it, or there could be there's a lot of ethical issues with true crime, I think. But I had the same thing. I had the same realization of what else could I be spending my time on? What else could I be spending my brain power on, or filling my brain with things that are teaching me better things or helping me reflect on better things. So I've cut out most true crime things from my own life, because I was so deep into it. You kind of don't even realize it until you kind of start thinking about the hours or the numbers of podcasts that you've completed and you can't find anymore. And you're like, oh, wow, I've really gone through a lot. But there are so many amazing podcasts. Mama Bear Apologetics, Maven, Kathy Cook,
Center for Biblical Unity. Yeah.
Yes, there's so many. I'm looking through my phone right now. Stand to Reason, Verity, the Verity podcast, Felicia Masonheimer, the Unshaken Faith podcast with Alicia and Natasha. We love them. And one that's I just love her, Sally Clarkson, Life with Sally. Her podcast. If you just need pure enjoyment, encouragement, and you just feel like you're having a cozy tea time with your Christian grandmother who just loves you and wants to lift you up and encourage you. I love her. Never met her. Shout out Sally Clarkson. She's just so lovely and encouraging, and just love her. And I've also been really enjoying the Literary Life podcast, which isn't a new podcast, but Cassie, it's so good. It's three, I don't know if you'd call them professors, but they have their own, I should have thought through what I'm about to say. I don't want to misrepresent them, but they're three people who are Christians who have like at least master's degrees in like literature and English. And they just talk about books, like all kinds of literature and books. And they're super smart and thoughtful and share really, really deep things. So if you are an English person or an English major, that podcast is for you. They get pretty deep in dissecting literature and short stories and poetry. And it's so good. The Literary Life podcast, really love them. So shout out.
Yeah. There's also a guy, I can't remember what his name is now. Darn. But he reads a poem every day and he goes through it and dissects it.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's really good. I think it's called The Daily Poem. And it's really good. Yeah. And it's always clean. And he does a great job. I feel like there are lots of ones like that I can pull up and just, if I want something quick, and just say, well, I'm driving to the grocery store. What can I listen to? I like that kind of stuff too.
So lastly, let's talk a little bit about the news that we consume. I know we're running a little long here, but there's just a lot to cover and a lot of good things to talk about. So Cassie, why don't you kind of wrap us up with talking about news sources? I know that's, everyone's favorite topic, but
yeah, so news is obviously more of a topic because it goes across all of the spectrum of things we've talked about consuming, right? So you even have books that come out about news events. Like it's everywhere. But I think one thing that tends to happen is because we live in an age where we have access to so much information, we are inundated with it constantly. So we're expected to know, like, be able to look at each other and say, did you hear what happened in Sudan today? And we know what's going on across the world. And some of that is good because, like, I think it's important that we know that Christians are being killed in Nigeria every day. That's important to know because we can pray for that and we can try to advocate for that. But advocate for them, rather.
Not for murder.
For helping them.
Yeah, we know what you meant.
But we can be too inundated, again, kind of like we said with the true crime. We can get buried in the news because most of what makes news is not good. It's headlines of people dying, death and destruction and disease, right?
Yes.
Those are the three big things that make the news. And so when you're constantly consuming news, like I know someone who leaves a news channel on their TV going constantly 24/7. And so there is a certain amount of anxiety even that can build up with that because it just looks so dreary. It looks so awful. Like the world is completely falling apart. And we need to go hide in our basement and never come out. But that's not the truth. And so how can we consume news in a healthy way? There are resources out there, again, and these are resources that I use consistently, and it has made a huge difference for me in the way that I'm able to look at the news, discern what the truth is, and absorb out feeling that heaviness and that anxiety. And some of those, a huge one for me is World News Group. So shout out to World. They do a phenomenal job of covering the news for every age group, actually. My kids have a 10-minute news show they watch almost every day that World puts out. And they call it the news. Mommy, can we watch the news? And they love it. And it gives them a brief snippet of the major headlines in our country and around the world without gory violence, without being dreary and sad and heavy all the time. It'll put a warning up if there is something like abortion that will be discussed, so parents know, hey, maybe watch it with them or watch it in advance. And at the end, it always has these really fun pieces about what's the history of this word, or why do we use this phrase, or what does this holiday really mean? Like Labor Day, they did a whole thing on Labor Day that was fantastic. And my kids, I have to say, have probably learned more from watching news than they learn from anything else I've ever taught them in homeschooling. They come up with random facts all the times. And like my son used the phrase the other day, engulfed in flames. And I was like, where did you learn that? And he heard it on news. And so it was just like, he's 8. And anyway, it's just to see the amount that they learn from that. But they take away positive messages because the end of every single episode without fail, they end by saying, whatever the news, the purpose of the Lord will stand. And so my kids, they hear the news and then they get that reminder. And I think we all need that reminder because no matter what's going on, the purpose of the Lord will stand.
Amen.
God is in control. And World does a good job of doing that at every level. There's a World magazine. I get that as well for kind of adults that's goes a little deeper into things, talks a little bit more about politics and things from an adult perspective. But honestly, I love watching news with my kids too. That's a big one for us. And then I do the daily podcasts that I talk about are Breakpoint by the Colson Center. Quick 5-minute podcast every morning that covers one headline. And then on the weekends, they kind of go over the whole week in about an hour. And then I do, the World News has their own podcast. And then I also do, Al Mohler does the briefing, and he'll take a headline and he'll dissect it. And why is this important to a Christian worldview? How can we look at this? And then the last one I get in my email Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is called The Pour Over. And it's, again, a synopsis of the headlines, and they each have links in them. So if you want to dig deeper, you can. but it just gives you a brief snippet of what's going on and a Bible verse and a prayer to go with it. How can we pray about this? What does the Bible have to say about this? Or what have the church fathers had to say about this kind of issue? And it's just very encouraging. So finding news sources like that is going to be a lot more helpful than just watching cable news.
Yeah. I do not watch cable news. I just don't. I just can't deal with it. I just don't. I don't want to hear it. I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm thankful to, thoughtful Christians who produce news channels, I guess, in different platforms that we can consume it more thoughtfully and more responsibly in a way that doesn't just wreck our psychology and nervous systems every single day. Because it's a lot. We know it's a lot. Well, you guys, we are so thankful you tuned in with us today. I know it's kind of funny. We're talking about what to listen and watch and read while we are on a platform where you are either listening and or watching us. So we appreciate that you're tuning in. And that's so much the point of our podcast. We want to be something you can watch and or listen to that is helpful and that glorifies the Lord and makes you feel good and thoughtful and teaches you something. And we're just so thankful that you chose to listen to us today. And we hope this was a blessing to you. So be thoughtful and careful about what you think about, listen to, watch, read, absorb, because it matters to you. It matters to the Lord. And we want to do everything to glorify him as scripture encourages us to do. So we hope this will help you in that pursuit. We love you guys, and we hope you have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you later.
Bye.